Sup nerds, are you guys ready to see the best Jesmon list on the internet? Let's get into it. Alright, and starting off with our Digitama, we are running 4 Babitomon, no 5th Tama. 5th Tama is unnecessary. The 5th Tama is unnecessary. You will literally never use your 5th Tama in this deck if you're playing it correctly. The reason why we're running Babitomon is because if you have Jesmon, 1 Sistermon, and Delicate Plan, you can swing in your opponent's security completely safely. Because with Babitomon and any Sistermon triggering Jesmon's effect, he's 16k. So he's bigger than anything else in the game. And if you have Delicate Plan, you're not going to worry about options. There is 0 interaction your opponent can do with that combo. The only thing that you could possibly run into is Chikurimon from Black, or Shademon potentially coming out if you're not expecting another blocker to be on the board. But that's why we're running Babitomon. We want our Jesmon to always hit 16k minimum. And also, I actually ran into a 19k Craniumon while I was testing this deck, and if I had had Babitomon as my baby while I was testing, while I was in that testing phase, this is before I switched to Babitomon, I actually wouldn't have cared that the Craniumon was 19k because I would have been at 20k because I had 2 seals on the field. So something like that can come up. Final Zubagon Punch is being teched in Black, so if they manage to do that and make their Crania huge, this makes it that much harder for them to get high enough to where you don't care and you're still swinging over them with Jesmon. And on to our rookies. We are running 4 Huckmon. Huckmon's effect is on play, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, add 2 Digimon cards with Huckmon, Jesmon, or Sistermon and the names among them to your hand, place the remaining cards at the bottom of your deck in any order. So this guy is going to filter for your pieces. Mainly he's just going to be searching for your Saver and Jess, but occasionally he'll be able to search you a level 4 target or one of your Sistermons if you haven't seen one yet. But he's obviously the best rookie you have in the deck. And then on to our next rookie, we are running 4 Starter Deck 7 Gilmon. The warp into Gallantmon is irrelevant. We do not play the Gallantmon in this deck, spoilers. We are just running him for his Inheritable, which is awesome. So his Inheritable is your turn, once per turn. When an opponent's Digimon is deleted, trigger draw 1. So this is essentially an upgrade to the promo Biomon, because this does not care how they're deleted. Yes, it's once per turn and Biomon is not, but this doesn't care if how they're deleted. Like, this could be under something that's next to something that runs something over, to where you trigger, draw 1 on that, and if you have a destruction effect randomly go off on your turn, you draw 1 on that. This guy is awesome. The theme of this deck is drawing cards, because we want to see our combo pieces, and that is why we're playing this guy in 4. And on to our next rookie, we are running 4 Monodramon. So this is from BT1, and this is our 2-drop 3k vanilla. For those of you that follow this channel, you know that I actually don't like vanilla rookies. I rarely ever play them in decks, but we are running a very, very spicy tech that you will see later that interacts with this card. And that is the reason why I'm actually running it over any other 3-cost, like, actually affects rookie. Playing the 2-cost is not bad. Like, I don't mind them, but if this guy didn't interact with the tech that we're running, I still would run probably an Agumon or more of the Biomons. And then we are running a 1 of Biomon. This is our 13th rookie. I really wanted to squeeze 14 rookies in here, but sadly there's just not enough room. But 13 is sufficient. You do see them often enough. And this is essentially, in my opinion, a worse version of the Starter Deck 7 Gilmon. This effect is when this Digimon deletes one of your opponent's Digimon in battle, trigger draw 1. Yes, it's not once per turn, so you could potentially swing over 2 Digimon and draw twice. But in that scenario, you obviously have Jesmon as the top of the stack, and you're swinging twice and chunking their security anyway. So, like, that extra draw in that scenario where you're already probably going to win the game on that turn is irrelevant. So that's why I think this is far inferior to the Starter Deck 7 Gilmon. That is it. We are running 13. And on to our honorary rookies, which we do not count in our rookie count. 3 Sistermon Blanc. Her effect is while you have a Digimon with Huckmon or Royal Knight in its type. Huckmon in its name and Royal Knight in its type. All of your Digimon with Sistermon in the names gain Blocker, so she gives herself and Seal Blocker if you have a Huckmon or Royal Knight in play. And then her effect secondary on play, trigger draw 1. Randomly checking a Judgment of the Blade in security and bringing her back when you have a Huckmon on the field and having an extra blocker is cool. Also just drawing the card randomly because you get her on play effect in that scenario, is great. She's a really good card. I do see Liz playing 4, but I want to run 3 Seal, and there's not enough room in this deck for 4 Blancs and 3 Seals. Also, I think she would be overdrawn at 4, honestly. I would rather see an actual rookie that I can Digivolve over her. Alright, and on to our champions. We are running 4 Starter Deck 1 Greymon. His inheritable is Security Attack +1. That's why you're running him. It just makes your Jesmon swing for an extra check when he's going in. You want to see him early and often. And on to our next champion. We are running 4 Bowhuck. So his effect is when attacking once per turn, if you have a Digimon with Sistermon in its name in play, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 5,000 DP or less. This is a really cool effect when you have a Gilmon somewhere on your field, because you just get to draw a card randomly in that scenario. The main reason why we're running 4 of him is so our Huckmon can search level 4 targets consistently, just in case you're missing that piece. And also just his interaction with Judgment of the Blade is also very cool. Also, him being 6k for a champion is huge, considering that the Seals buff him up to 8k if you just have one on the field, and also, like I said, you can Judgment him to run over your opponent's Digimon. He's very good, but yeah, he's a fantastic champion, but the main reason why we're running him is because he is searchable from Huckmon. And our last 2 champions... 2 Cordramon. This is our 6k blocker. Obviously, you're running the Sistermon Blancs that give your Sistermon's blocker, but those suck in the mirror because Bowhuck can just delete either one of them. But it's very nice just having 2 level 4 blockers in this deck. I know it seems kind of odd because like you're super aggressive and blockers seem kind of irrelevant, especially when you have Blancs and stuff. But these guys are very good. Also, they interact with a spicy tech that I will show you eventually as well. And that is it for our champions. We are running 10, which sounds low, but I assure you it is not in this deck, and you'll understand why when I get to it. Onto our honorary champions, 3 Sistermon Seal. Her effect is all turns, all of your Digimon with Huckmon in their names or roll a knight and their types get plus 2,000 DP. That is all of your Huckmons, and that's obviously Jesmon, so when she's on the field, they're all 2k bigger and they stack. And then her secondary effect is on play, gain 1 memory. So if you hard play her and they don't have a memory blocker on their field, she essentially costs 3 because you gain one of the 4 memory back. But if you play her for free off of Jesmon or Savior Huckmon's effect, you just gain a memory, which is very cool. But she's by far my favorite Sistermon when you're comboing. And also, interaction with Judgment of the Blade. If you check Judgment and Security and bring her back, you gain a memory, and that can potentially end your opponent's turn if they're at 0 already. So you got to be aware of that interaction if you're playing against this deck as well. And on to our ultimates, we are running 4 Savior Huckmon. Arguably the best card in your deck. This is what lets you abuse Jesmon and your Sistermons. Jesmon wouldn't be anywhere near as powerful as it is if this card didn't exist. His effect is when Digivolving, you may play a Digimon card with Sistermon in its name from your hand without paying its memory cost. This is really cool because this lets you get an extra body on the field for free. And so you can Digivolve into him and play Blanc to get an extra draw off the Digivolve and have a blocker on the field. Or something that I like to do is Digivolve into him and drop a Seal, and that gains your memory back, so he essentially costs 2 to Digivolve, which is very cool. And his secondary effect is when attacking once per turn, if you have Digimon Sistermon in its name in play, unsuspend this Digimon. This lets you swing twice with Jesmon. This card is very stupid, and you only will ever want to see this card. This is your best ultimate because it's our only ultimate, spoilers. But you will understand why whenever I finish showing off the deck. Yes, this deck is Savior or Bust, and so far it's been working out very nicely for me. And you guys will understand once I get to our very spicy tech. On to our Megas. This is our only Mega, spoilers. For Jesmon, this card is really dumb. His effect is when attacking, you may play 1 Digimon card with Sistermon in its name from your hand or trash without paying its memory cost. So you get to recycle your Seals, your Blancs, or play them from your hand if you need to, draw a card or gain a memory, depending on which one you hit. And then his secondary effect is your turn once per turn. When you play another Digimon, this Digimon gets plus 3,000 DP and piercing for the turn. So this is always going to trigger if you play a Sistermon, but sometimes if you build up into your stack and you don't have a Sistermon yet, you can just hard play a rookie to trigger this effect. And then once you do that, if he has a full stack underneath him, he's 16k, You just won't get the second swing off the savior underneath him if you don't see a sister, but him being 16k and have piercing is still pretty nice. And onto our Tamers. We are running 2 Tai Kamiya. He's a memory setter, and his other effect is your turn. All of your red Digimon with 4 or more Digivolution cards gain security attack +1, and they stack. So what this means is if you have a Jesmon with a full line underneath him all the way down to a Tama, he gets an extra security check for each one of these you have in play. So this card is very good for what it does. Get an extra check potentially, or have your memory set to 3 so you can't get memory choked repeatedly. But if you play more than 2, it has a tendency to be overdrawn, and you really only ever need 1 in play unless you're like playing against, I would say, security control specifically. Having 2 in play is really nice. But against any other deck, 1 in play is plenty, and you actually don't need to see this card to win. So that's why we're only playing 2. If I don't see this card, it's not a big deal. If I do see this card, cool. But that's why I don't want to play any more than 2. Like playing 3, you'll see it a lot more often. But you'll also see it in multiples a lot more often, and I really don't like that. And onto our options, we are running 2 Delicate Plan. The effect is main. One of your Digimon gains. This Digimon doesn't activate the security effects of any option cards it checks for the turn, and security is add this card to your hand, which is pretty cool. So this is what lets you just kill people with 0 interaction with your Jesmon. Because if you have a Sistermon and you Delicate Plan your Jesmon, you swing twice for how many ever checks you happen to be swinging for, and he's 16k minimum, and he's just going to clear out their security and option cards don't activate. This is a very degenerate deck, I would say, just because there's like literally 0 interaction unless you're playing against black, and they have a Chikurimon in their security. That's like the only interaction that's possible if you have the full combo on somebody, which is pretty dumb. Like I promoted my Jesmon, he was swinging for 3 security, because I had Greymon underneath him and I had a Tai on the field, and I already had a Corgimon on the field, and my opponent had 5 security and no blockers. I promoted, activated Delicate Plan, and I had a sister in the trash, and he said, "All right, that's game," and he scooped. That's really dumb. They have no hope when you do that. But that's why we're playing 2. We do want to see this card before we start swinging in. Sometimes you're forced to just YOLO it if your opponent pressures you enough and you haven't seen that card yet, but if you do not get pressured, I probably wouldn't start swinging until I drew Delicate Plan, unless you have to. On to our next option, 2 Judgment of the Blade. This is our removal, or some of our removal in this deck. The effect is main. One of your Digimon with Huckmon in its name or Royal Knight in its type can attack your opponent's unsuspended Digimon for the turn. What's really dumb about this is if you have this and this on your Jesmon, and your opponent only has 2 blockers on the field, and you have a second body on the field that can swing, is you can swing over both of their blockers when you're clearing out their security, and then they don't have a blocker anymore, and then you can just swing for game with your secondary body. That's one of the combos you can do where there's nothing your opponent can do about it, they just die. But this card's also really good for just grindy games where like you activate this on your Balhuck or your Savior and just run over one of their guys, and maybe pop something else with Balhuck's effect if that's active. But it's a very good card. I could see people running more than 2 of this card, but I don't think more than 2 is necessary unless you're just trying to grind people out, or just sack people in security where you check this and play a Sistermon Seal or something. But I think 2 is the perfect number for this card. The secondary effect is you may play 1 Digimon card with Sistermon in its name from your hand or trash, and then add this card to your hand. Pretty dumb effect, because it still goes to your hand like Delicate Plan, except for you also get an extra body on the field, which could potentially either draw your card and be a blocker, or just gain you a memory to potentially end your opponent's turn prematurely. So this potentially could just like function as a Hammer Spark out of security on top of going to your hand, which is pretty dumb. And on to our spicy tech. When I was looking into pure Jesmon and how to run it, I realized that obviously this deck is a combo deck. So in order for you to win, you do need to see your pieces. And in order to see those pieces as quickly as possible, you can either search them or draw them. And so I looked into potentially ways to search them / draw them. The red memory boost cards are really cool. And they also double to give you extra memory, like on the secondary effect where you trash it to gain some memory. Those are very good cards, but the issue is One, they can bottom deck your other combo pieces because they only search red Digimon cards. So they can bottom deck your Sistermons, and potentially you just may not see Sistermons that game. Or they can bottom deck your Delicate Plans, which also is a big issue because obviously you want to have that whenever you're swinging with Jesmon. So I came to the conclusion that drawing cards is infinitely better than trying to search them with that card. So once I decided that, I looked into some stuff, and this is what I came up with. I legit don't know why I haven't seen another list playing this card. So I'm gonna read the effect for you really quick, and then I'm just gonna go over some thoughts about it. So it's a 3-cost option. Main, trigger, draw 2 cards. That's all you really need to know. This is a Pot of Greed for 3 memory. So that's why I'm playing 4, is because if you see this early and often, it does it like just pay 3, draw 2. Cool, I'm deeper to my combo or closer to my combo. But there's also a secondary effect. If one of your Digimon has Greymon or Drum on its name, other than Doru, Burning, or Dex Doru, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 4,000 DP or less. And also the securities activate the main effect, so if they check it in security, you draw 2 cards bare minimum. But if you have a Mono Dramon on the field, a Core Dramon on the field, or a Greymon on the field, you get to just randomly pop one of your opponent's Digimon that's 4K or less, which is awesome. So against the Bond matchups, that's going to be pretty much any one of their bodies that's on the field when they happen to pass turn to you. And against, let's say, 3 Muskets, Deputymon's 4K. So he just gets popped for free off of Heir of Dragons. I don't see why I have never seen a list playing this card. This is probably one of the only like true combo decks in Digimon, and they have access, because they're a red deck, to this card that's literally Pot of Greed, in addition to potentially just a free destruction if it happens to come up. But bare minimum, it's Pot of Greed. This card is amazing. So Huckmon can potentially search you 2 pieces off the top 5 cards of your deck. Red Memory Boost can potentially search you 1 piece off the top 4, but bottom deck the other 3. This card just draws 2 cards off the top 2 cards of your deck. So that lets you draw into your Delicate Plans that you need, your Greymons that give you an extra security check that you need, and then anything else you need, and it doesn't bottom deck anything. Also, it lets you draw into another card that I'm about to show you that I really enjoy playing as well. But I'm going to get into some combos with this card after I finish the deck profile. I love this card in this deck. And onto our last option card, we are running 3 Gravity Crush. Why am I running this and not Red Memory Boost, you ask? Well, I've already explained why I don't like Red Memory Boost, because it bottom decks some of your combo pieces that you actually need to win the game, which is really bad. And also, this card lets you just activate it when you draw it. Red Memory Boost, you have to wait a full turn to get that extra 2 memory. This card, if I draw into it for turn or off a Digivolve, I can just activate it and just win that turn. So the effect is, it's 0 cost, main, gain 2 memory, and at the end of the turn, lose 2 memory, and there is no security effect. So the cost here, although it's not a cost, it's just like an effect of the card, is at the end of your turn, you lose 2 memory. A lot of times when you activate this card, you're just gonna end the game there, and they never get that 2 memory back anyway. But also, this card is good as like just... So let's say your opponent has a memory setter, and they set you to 2 memory. So you can activate this, go to 4, and you can hard play Huckmon, go to 1, and then you can Digivolve Huckmon into a champion for 2, it puts them to 1, and then the end of your turn triggers, this activates and puts them to 3 before the memory setter ever kicks in. So there's, like, in that situation, it just let you do something extra on your turn with no actual drawback, because they're going to 3 regardless. And that's one of the things I love about this card, is like, if you play it correctly, even if you aren't winning the game on that turn, it doesn't even really hinder you, because there are so many memory setters in the format. I think of this card like Blinding Ray, except for Blinding Ray trashes the top card of security, and you really don't want to do that in this deck. But this, you just lose 2 memory at the end of your turn, but a lot of times, as I explained, that doesn't even hurt you. And if you happen to kill your opponent on that turn, they don't get that memory, so it doesn't matter. Activating an Heir of Dragons and drawing, like, seeing this card in multiples means your opponent is going to die before, like a turn or two before they actually expect you to be able to drop Jesmon on them. And that's one of my favorite things about drawing cards as opposed to searching them, is they have no idea what's in your hand besides your Jesmon pieces. But this card is broken, in all honesty, and I love seeing it. Alright, let's get into some combos in this thing. Alright, so let's say you have this stack on the field, or you have this guy and this guy on the field. Somehow either a Greymon or a Drummon on the field and Gilmon is inheritable. It happens a lot of different ways. You have 10 targets for Heir of Dragons. If you activate an Heir of Dragons and you have something that you can delete on your opponent's side of the field, you draw 3 cards. That's really dumb. So you pay 3 memory, draw 2, and then you delete 4k or lower on your opponent's side of the field because of your target, and then you draw an additional card from Gilmon. That's insane. That actually happens a lot more often than you'd expect it to. Like when I originally tested this deck, I put this in strictly because you drew 2 cards, and I wanted to see more of my combo pieces more often. And I made this one of my rookies just to interact with it more. But the destruction effect comes up all the time. Like, it's crazy how often it comes up. Like, I never anticipated it coming up as often as it did. But just an extra pop, like that's a +2 on your opponent. And if you have a Gilmon on the field, it's a +3. Because you draw 3 cards and delete one of theirs for a cost of one of your cards. That's really, really strong. Like I said, I'm amazed that no one has tried this, or maybe people have and they just haven't made it public. This card is insane in this deck. Like, it's unfair. Another combo I really enjoy in this deck, you have this in your raising area, and they set you to 3 either from your Tamer, or they just happen to give you 3 memory. That happens quite a bit playing against the Bond decks. If they're not deliberately trying to choke you. Like, blue may be able to choke you, but red is just going to probably put you to 3 every turn. So you push out with this, and you have 3 memory, right? You Digivolve into Savior, activate Savior's effect, play Seal. So you go back to 1, and you draw a card in this scenario. You activate Gravity Crush, you go to 3, and then you Digivolve into Jesmon. This is insane, like, and this part of the reason why I love this card being this card as opposed to Memory Boost is because your opponent has no way to anticipate you having this in your hand. Whereas Red Memory Boost, they're like in their head, okay, they have it on the field, they could potentially get 2 extra memory on their turn, so I need to be prepared for that. Or they'll play their memory blocker for the turn to make sure to keep your memory boost from being on the field. But with this card, because it's in your hand, they have no way of knowing when the right time to play that card is. And if they play it at the wrong time, you just pop it with Bowhuck before you ever see Gravity Crush, or before you need to activate Gravity Crush. Or you can pop it with Heir of Dragons. There are lots of really free ways to pop memory blockers in this deck. But these 7 cards right here separate this list from any other list I have seen. I've seen people playing anywhere from 1 to 2 Gravity Crush, usually pre-starter deck, because they feel that the Red Memory Boost cards are superior. I disagree with that because of all the reasons I've stated already. They bot deck your combo pieces and all that stuff. Also, they take too long to actually activate their secondary effect. Yes, they do go to your battle area if they're checked in security, and this just goes to your trash. That's the only downside of this card. Everything else far outweighs the fact that it doesn't have a security effect. I'm still like just blown away that no one's even tried this. Like, playing Pot of Greed in a combo deck, like, why wouldn't you? I think it's silly not to play this card, at least in some number. I think 4 is the correct number, obviously. I think playing this in some capacity is going to be superior to any other version of Jesmon that is running around. But I do appreciate you guys stopping by. Do let me know your thoughts on this deck in the comments. Let me know if you are going to try it out. Also, ask me any questions that you have that I may not have answered. But I do encourage you guys to try this out. I think it's by far the best version of Jesmon that we have available to us at this moment, post-starter deck. But I do appreciate you guys stopping by. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content and want to come back for more. But until next time, see ya.